How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here and welcome back to the third installment of the free tier 7 tanks that you can pick up in World of Tanks as part of the operation that we've been covering over the last two videos in this kind of mini series, where we're looking at the AMX 1357, of course, the Eagle 7 and the Jackal, and which one's the kind of different play styles, the ways in which you can play them, and what each tank is all about, and exactly what we're continuing with the Eagle 7, the final tank in this list. And this is the one that I'm going to say is probably the most consistent tank out of the lot of them, but it is very much a similar playstyle to what you can have within the tech tree kind of equivalents in the Pershing, the M46 pattern, and that's really why I say to go with the other vehicles, is because you can play a similar sort of playstyle already within the game, which you don't really get with the other premium tanks. So of course, if you're after variety or something a little bit different, the other tanks are probably the ones to go with. But of course, that is entirely down to you. If you want the best of the lot, then probably this one is the most consistent and will be the better of the lot of them, because it has just that kind of mobility, gun depression, the somewhat decent armor kind of at this tier, so you can bounce a little bit off of the turret. You also have the kind of really consistent higher alpha damage gun, which allows you to really plow through a ton of opponents, but also have a decent reload where it doesn't feel all too bad, and where you can have the view range as well, and the accuracy, and just basically everything that you really need as a medium tank to perform to the utmost ability. And that's how we were able to pick up a game like this, and we'll be looking at another one where we maybe aren't in the best conditions, because of course this is the kind of the best conditions you can have, being a top tier 7 in a tier 7 game, and being able to play in the way that you want to, as opposed to being forced to play a little bit more passively or play in a different way than what maybe this tank is suited to. And of course, you're seeing me here playing up against the Oni. We know the weak points of it. Of course, unfortunately for me, we didn't have the penetration on the standard round, so you need to keep an eye on that. We managed to shut the OI experimental down, which is ideal because we wanted to get rid of him. And of course, me trying to aim at the weak point of the Oni and end up only hitting the gun. So we may have to go for the turret weak point, which is that little thing on the top of the tank, or the cupola. I keep seeing people honestly correcting me, saying cupola is not the real way to say it, blah blah blah. You know, it's probably just an accent thing. It's not necessarily the end of the world. I'll probably just continue to call it cupola, to be honest. But either way, the 1900 damage and 1100 assistance so far is pretty good, but it's at this point in the game where you can start to push and really show the true colours of the Eagle 7 and the strengths of this tank, and that is being that kind of frontal, aggressive nature medium tank that, you know, if you get caught out, it can be very painful because the tank's armor, you know, it's a medium tank, it can be penned by most things, but you get rewarded amazingly if you do so correctly, and you can push into locations correctly because of the fact that you have good view range and the fact that you have good kind of DPM, and you've also got high alpha damage for a medium tank at this tier. You can outtrade a lot of the tanks at tier 7, albeit maybe not the heavy tanks and some of the kind of high alpha TDs, etc. that you have in the game, but you can certainly push forward, and you can see that within this game. We picked up 2600 damage, and most of it being when we're being more aggressive towards the later stages of this game, spotting the little seal clubbing Hellcat and some of the more OP little seal clubbing tanks sat at the back in their spawn. And of course, we've also picked up a decent amount of assistance, 2300 so far within this game, so definitely very nice to have. And of course, I believe in this crew setup that we have, we've actually taken the marked target so that we get increased or designated target, where you get basically the enemies are spotted for a couple of seconds longer than they usually are, which is a nice thing to have in your medium tank, since you get that extra amount of assistance potentially where they're spotted for, and it just allows your teammates to best kind of maneuver how you want to. Now we're facing up against the other tier 7 medium, which is the Panther. The Panther has the smaller alpha, and unfortunately for him, the reload's not quite quick enough with his DPM to be able to do much about us. And we pick up 3,800 damage with over 3,000 assistance, so over 7,000 combined damage in this game, meaning that we picked up 2,400 base experience, which is one of the highest that I've had in recent times, and definitely a very, very good, solid tank, and why I think that this is probably the most consistent, competitive of the three vehicles, but it's probably not the funnest of the lot, since it is very similar to what you can get in the tech tree. But of course, we don't want to end it there. We want to have a look at one more, whilst we talk about the whole event and what are the good things that we've had in consoles kind of operations that we've had recently. Of course, we've had the silver with interest operation to earn a ton of silver, and I think they're doing a really good job with these kind of earn operations, not having just tons of tier 8 vehicles in them like we've had previously. I know it sounds stupid, but sometimes it's nice to show off some of the lower tier premium, some things like the Eagle 7, the Jackal, and of course the 1357 that we don't often see, because a lot of the earn operations are for tier 8 vehicles, and you know, there is tier 7s in the game that are definitely fun to play, and I feel like all of the time that they're pushing these tier 8s, it often pushes newer players up into the tiers where maybe they're not necessarily well suited to. And you know, although it's good to give them a free premium every now and again, when you constantly spam them, it can be a little bit frustrating for the player base who are sat up at the higher tiers. It leads to kind of fast games where people just don't know where to go, etc. And giving off tanks like this is a bonus to both the players who play the game regularly, you know, experienced players, but also players that, you know, are new to the game. It's a little bit more forgiving than you'll see with some of the tier 8s in the game, and of course tier 10s for sure. But of course, I don't want to sound ungrateful. It's nice to have those tier 8s, and I'm not saying that Wargaming should stop them altogether. I just think that it's nice to have a bit of diversity with these earn operations, and I think that they've gone the right way. You know, they've given us tier 8s recently, they've given us tier 7s. I assume that we'll probably go to another tier 8 at some point soon, and then maybe down to a tier 6 or something like that. It's just nice to see some of the more unique and maybe some of the tanks that we don't often see being added into the game, and I think that that's always a good thing. And I wanted to add it into this video because, you know, it's somewhat related, and hopefully I'd like to see what your opinions are, and of course hopefully you'll do that in the comment section, because yeah, it's just always interesting, and I'll be probably on the comment section quite a lot since I am away on holiday probably when this video goes live. So it's kind of, it might even go live on my birthday, so if you're watching this on June 15th, then yeah, it's my birthday. But either way, we have of course the Eagle 7 pushing forward. This game was a fairly quick one. I kind of added this one in because although I had higher damage games, I felt like it was a decent one to really show what the tank can do in these sorts of scenarios where, you know, you're winning very quickly, and it is the case where sometimes you win super quickly and you're not able to necessarily do the damage, but this one still can, even if you are kind of pushed with regards to the time and how long's left in your game to farm up the damage. But because the DPM of the tank's very good, you've got the high alpha, you can reward yourself quite easily by getting a lot of damage quite quickly, and you're seeing that here as we push towards the end of the game. We've got an artillery piece who's of course aiming at me, even though there's literally two tanks right next to him. The typical artillery player. Obviously self-preservation is not worth it for them. But you're seeing there, the Comet there is trying to push us, the other tier 7, the British medium, but he can't outtrade us because of the fact that that only gets 145 damage, I believe, which is obviously nowhere near the 240 that this one gets. I believe this has a 90mm, so it's the same as something like a Hellcat, and it definitely competes with the Hellcats. You can definitely deal with them quite easily. You have slightly better DPM, I believe, and even if you don't, you have much better armor than a Hellcat, and even if you don't have the speed, you've just got the more all-round nature. Of course, the turret dispersion being way better, and it really just feels very, very good, very solid tank, and that's what we were all about when it comes to these medium tanks. I feel like having an all-rounder is always quite nice. Things like the Centurion Action X, the FE4202, and some of these mediums are always quite good. where they have gun depression, which this does, which is perfect, 10 degrees, and yeah, it's just a very nice tank to play. And you can see me here just going in after the final vehicle, the ARL. We're trying to spot him, we're trying to get an easy shot into him there on the move. Of course, it would be lucky if we hit it, but now we stop and fully aim and we get one into the cupola of the ARL, and he's definitely out of the game pretty quickly. But a very quick game of World of Tanks, but it gave me an kind of time to actually talk to you guys about that operation and what you think about some of the operations that they've been giving out with these tier 10s that they're releasing, with the T58 Heavy, of course flooding the matchmaker, and of course with things like the AVRE when they get released. Very annoying to have in the game. And yeah, I feel like if they stuck to more lower end premium / mid range, you know, tier 8s, tier 7s, tier 6s, I think that would be a nice little addition, especially if they made them a little bit more novel and added in a few more of them, because it seems like all of the new premiums are always tier 8s, and we don't really see a whole lot of tier 6 and 7 premiums come out that often. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what you guys think, and hopefully you enjoyed this little mini series and got the idea between all of the tanks. And of course you can go back and check out some of the other ones if you're not sure still, and see whether or not you think that they're any good or that suit your playstyle. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week, and I will see you in the next video tomorrow. Goodbye.